Welcome back to All That Jam, where music has no limits. We are joined today by three-fifths of Desmond Jones. I have Isaac, Chris, and John with me. How you guys doing?
Great.
Wonderful.
Very nice. You guys are out of Grand Rapids, and I will give you a little heads up that Michigan, Detroit specifically, has always been the nexus for me from San Francisco in the late 60s and the Summer of Love and CBGB's in the mid 70s. Because without the Stooges, the MC5, a lot that went on there, we wouldn't have what we want. You guys are flipping the normal jam band thing on its head by having two guitars instead of the guitar keyboard combo at the top, and you add the saxophone. And I feel like that I've been ripped off because you guys have been together, what, 12 years now?
Yep, just coming up on 12 years.
Yeah, and you had why don't we get into the origin story? But I guess when we get up to COVID, I find that the most fascinating because you guys made some interesting changes. But how did you guys get started, and what pieces have come and gone since the beginning?
Well, John and myself have been playing music together since middle school. We grew up together, and so we had bands all the way through middle school and high school, and then we both ended up going to Michigan State as well. And we had a break from the bands that we were in because everyone kind of went their own ways. But John and I were still together, and so we decided it'd be fun to keep on playing. And I put up a bunch of posters around campus and even ads on Craigslist. And honestly, the only people that responded are the people that are in the band. So Chris responded and George responded online, and we met up and we've been playing ever since. We started in college and we did a few years at Michigan State. The first few years were mostly parties and, smaller shows. And then John and I are the youngest. And once we finished, then everyone kind of was like, all right, well, what's the next step? And we all moved to Grand Rapids and started taking it more seriously and started hitting the road.
All right. So Taylor, I thought Taylor had joined the band recently.
He did, yeah. So we had our original bass player, John, left right before COVID. And then we found Taylor. And it was funny. We had a few shows, like really fun shows that we did. And it was like awesome. And then everything got shut down. We're like, oh, sorry, man. You just joined and now we got to take a break. But he's been a great addition and now played a lot of shows with us. And it's been awesome. He's been a really excellent addition.
So did COVID become a blessing? Because your first guy left, you get another guy in, and all of a sudden you don't have to play. So you can spend the time, I guess, even online remotely, getting to know each other, building that trust.
Yeah, it was actually, it gave us a lot of time to work on new material, kind of get the band tight and kind of in playing gear. We were able to write a lot of new material. It was, obviously wasn't the most fun experience for everybody, but it was good in that regard to allow the band to grow in new ways and kind of allow him to become more of a unit with us.
Yeah, I'm working on a movie, How I Spent My COVID, because I find it fascinating with so many artists how, you guys, let's just jump into it, because I found this most fascinating when I started diving into you is the country album. And that came out of COVID, or was it something you thought of before and you were already moving towards?
We've kind of always had that kind of influence, just being big fans of 70s rock and obviously the Dead. So we've had on some of the earlier albums, there's a couple more country-esque songs, and we had all these unrecorded ones. So COVID, we just kind of decided, I think, did we plan that album before COVID? We had been talking about it for a long time of just putting all of our country songs on one album. So it's definitely a big part of us, and we kind of think of it more of like a concept album instead of like a rebrand where it's like it's kind of like Ween's country album or the Rolling Stones country album. That's kind of
I will throw out the Super Suckers Must Have Been High album, which Isaac said he had never heard. I'm assuming you guys haven't either. Punk band who were on Sub Pop decided to do a country album, and it's one of the most fantastic things you've ever heard. It's just incredible.
Today, then. Just look it up.
Yeah, there's one of the songs is called the Super Sucker Drive-By Blues. So there's the attitude there. But you guys have a psychic or what lunch counter? What's up with the lunch counter?
It's a lunch fucker.
Yeah,
that
I
one,
love that song. When I
right.
see you guys, you got to play it, even if it's in retirement. You got to dust that one off.
oh yeah, we got that. That's an old one from our sax player that he brought when he joined. That's a fun one.
Right.
But that one's
There's a
literally
very
just-
much.
That one is literally just about a lunch lady that is psychic, and you don't have to order anything. She'll just give you what you want. That's it.
Which is what we all want.
Nice. Right. I want a ham sandwich and a chocolate milkshake. I love it. So, are you guys Zappa fans?
Big time.
I can
Yeah.
hear that. I can hear that. You want to talk a little bit about the influence because I find it running through a lot of what you do, but you also have a fresh spin on it. The saxophone is very much the 70s kind of, thing. But yeah, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that was actually one of the kind of big unifying factors for everyone in the band. We all kind of separately were big Zappa people. And so when we came together, it was like, oh, we can all do this. A lot of times you don't find that many Zappa fans in a room together.
It was on Isaac's flyer, the flyer that he put up to look for bands. It was like Fish, Frank Zappa, Grateful Dead, Beatles, or something. So it was on the flyer.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, we all just love it. I'm a huge, specifically 70s Zappa fan. A lot of his like Hot Rats, Waka Jawaka era stuff. And I know George, our sax player, grew up, and same with Chris, grew up listening to Zappa their whole lives from their parents. So there's a lot of deep-rooted Zappa interest with everybody. And we like when we're writing, a lot of times we don't sit down and try to like, let's write a song like this, but it's really hard listening to that music that much and not have it seep into what you're doing, even if you're trying not to.
Right. They say what you listened to in high school informs everything that you choose after that in your whole life. And, when I was 13, I thought Kajagoogoo was all that, and so when the Disco Biscuits go into the 80s trance thing, I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that from when I was 12. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I love it. But there are also, we got other things, running through what you're doing. And you have what you told me 3 or 4 albums plus a couple live and a bunch of singles.
Yeah, we've got 4 full studio albums, an EP, and then we've been releasing. We record all of our live shows, so we have hundreds, and I think we have like 600 or 700 shows recorded. But so we've been taking those, which they're all on Nugs right now, and then we've been taking kind of our best hits and releasing them every couple weeks for our live cuts compilation. So we'll just be kind of doing that regularly. We're on our volume 1 right now, I guess. So we're kind of getting that done, and then we have a new album coming out as well in a couple months. So and then we'll probably get back on the live releases as well after that.
Content. As much as I hate to say it, content is, such a dirty word.
We're trying to like create how we want to create, but after the fact, try to splice it up how the world wants it. So the whole thing with like that waterfall effect everybody talks about with studio albums is you do a single once a month, just because people want that regular release of content, which is tough when you're used to being like, well, let's work on an album for 2 years and then release it.
Right. And the consumption of it on the other side is completely different. When I was 12, I had to spend $10 to go buy an album. So I was team AC/DC or I was team Judas Priest. There was no 2 ways about it. Now, if they both released an album today, I could go listen to them both on YouTube and not spend a penny and not be invested in it.
Yeah. It's so different nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is crazy. So you've recorded all these shows. Let me ask you about what I call the disconnect. You walk off stage after a show and you're like, my God, what happened? That was, we crapped the bed, or that was the greatest thing ever. when you go back and you listen to it again 2 weeks later or a day later or whenever, do you find a disconnect?
Yeah, I do a lot of the like mixing and splitting up the shows, and it's always kind of funny because there'll be shows where I'm like, oh, that was not a winner, and you'll go back and but then you go back and you listen to it, and you're like, that wasn't so bad, and then definitely the other way around too, where I can be like, that was the best show we've ever played, and then I listen to it and I'm like, no one should ever listen to this show ever. But it's fun because you can when you're playing the show, you hear it so differently. You're thinking critical, or you're thinking strategically. You're listening to everybody else. You're moving. Whereas when you go back to edit it, you're not focusing on what am I doing, how am I fitting in here. You can hear the whole picture, kind of take a step back and see the whole image, which is always really nice. And it's actually, I think a lot of the time it ends up being better because you can be really critical on yourself, I think, when you're playing. And if you mess up a certain part, you can be like, the whole thing is ruined. But when you can see, when you can take a step back.
The forest and the trees thing. Forest and the trees, right?
Exactly. So it's almost, most of the time it ends up being a nicer thing because, you're like, oh, right, the rest of the band is amazing. And my little mistake isn't going to ruin everything. So it's
now, do you guys... Did you guys listen, Chris and John, back as much? I mean, obviously, if Isaac's doing the mastering, he's listening to a lot of it. Do you guys go back and listen, or is it we did it like Fripp said? I played it. Why do I want to hear it again? I'm done with it. I've moved on.
I like to go back and listen. I don't listen nearly as much as Isaac does, just because of the nature of his responsibilities, which I'm really grateful for. But I do a lot of the social media and the website and the video stuff. So I listen to a lot of the same thing many times, instead of listening to everything a lot. So I'll do like our reels and try to find certain clips for Instagram and stuff like that. So that's actually really rewarding to me because I get to go through and we have a 15-minute song and there's no way that I can get somebody to watch all of that maybe right off.
Seconds. You got 16 seconds to catch them.
Yeah, exactly. So I like skipping around those live takes and finding what I think might be captivating or a good part of the jam. But I think it's a testament to our band and our live songs. I could go to any part of that jam and find something good in it. And one of my favorite things to do, sometimes I don't even know what song we're playing because it's in an uncharted territory. And I love it. It's just something we've never played before. It doesn't sound anything like the song that we initially started playing. So that's really fun for me too. I can find a clip here and then skip ahead 5 minutes into an improvisational component and find a whole new piece there that can, be its own video or its own separate post that way. So that's sort of how I consume our own live content. And then anytime Isaac is finished with the mix and he sends it over, I like to play it on my speakers while I'm doing the dishes or something. And that's a fun way to hear it back and say, oh yeah, that was pretty good. That was a lot of fun. And I like to try to close my eyes and think about, that moment or what I was thinking while I was playing the drums, and try to guess where we're going next. If it was a show from, a year ago or 2 years ago or 10 years ago, it's kind of fun for me to guess where we're going to go with it or try to remember what happens next. And a lot of the times we stump ourselves. So that's kind of
fun. Thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, so I've kind of went back and forth on this. Just you mentioned that Robert Fripp quote, and there was a quote in a Miles Davis autobiography that he said the same kind of thing. So when I was younger, I don't know, when we first started recording, I listened to every single one, every single time. And then I started to just overanalyze everything. And then I was studying a bunch of jazz stuff. So I was like, oh, if Miles Davis says to do that, then I'm not going to listen to myself that much. But what I've realized lately, especially after COVID, with the onslaught of modern technology and bands really changing how we do things, we wear in-ears on stage, and for other gig work I do, I'm always wearing in-ears, and I am not hearing anything close to what the audio is being captured on the computer or the crowd is hearing. So I'm starting to realize, for like listening to tonal things, that's been the best thing for me listening back regularly, is like, making sure my tone was right, or my volume was right, or my dynamics were right here. Was I overplaying because my in-ear mix is bad? So when I'm listening, it's less like, oh, that line was super hip, or like, oh, that chord was awesome. I'm just like, how does it sound overall? Am I overplaying, underplaying? So I think there's a huge benefit to listening back. And I think nowadays a lot of modern musicians kind of have an opposite mentality, where they're listening constantly. But I also understand if you're this or Robert Fripp and you're that connected to the source, then like I probably wouldn't listen to myself either, because I'd just play something cooler that moment.
Right the next time. I hear you with that. All right. I hear you. You guys have a huge catalog. How do you do set list? How do you pick what songs show up and what have disappeared forever?
We only really have, I think only like 2 or 3 songs that have been pretty much out, tossed,
vanished.
Yeah, but we've got we're closing in 100 songs. I think we've got 97, 96 original songs that have, like, we count them if they've been played live at a show, then it is on the list. So I think we're right under 100 right now, but I think we have a whole drive file where everyone just uploads their demos and their charts and everything like that. So we've still got like 20 plus waiting in there that we haven't touched, and it's nice because everyone writes in the band. So we're at any given time, we could show up at practice and be like, all right, what's new? And someone could have 5 songs, someone could have 2 songs. It's really nice. But for set list wise, it kind of goes day to day. We don't like to repeat songs show to show. And we just have so much material.
The unwritten rule. It's the unwritten rule of jam bands.
Exactly. It's and we just have so much material. It's like, it's fun to play everything. You know what I mean? So we like to spread it out. And since we have such a diverse catalog, we can play certain shows and kind of be like, all right, this is going to be more of a country song kind of crowd, or this is a party crowd, and we're going to just hit them with the dance tune.
If there's a barricade in front of you, to bust out the country album.
Exactly. When the chicken wire's there, we know what to play. It's fun to mix it up, and we like to get kind of unique with our set list and do a lot of like transitions of the songs in and out. Sometimes we'll do the classic jam band thing, spell out things in the set list, or
it's an art.
Yeah, it's a fun thing. It kind of makes the shows different and makes us think about the songs differently too. If we know we like to challenge ourselves with maybe transitioning into songs that are not really close to each other tonally, and so it's like, all right, we got to just go and we're gonna figure out how to get there.
Who writes the set list, or do you do the pull thing? These are the songs we might do tonight.
It depends. I write them a lot. Taylor, our bass player, writes them a lot. But if anyone, there's no like person in charge. It's just usually
Taylor's probably best. I always find like Matt Bush used to write the Dead and Company set list, and he was Bob Weir's manager at the time, and I always found it fascinating because I feel like, Taylor, he's only been in 4 years now. He probably has a different appreciation. Like John Mayer with Dead and Company, he didn't grow up listening to the Grateful Dead, and he is an incredible steward of Garcia because he studied him as an adult. You know what I'm saying, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think Taylor definitely does approach and see the songs differently than we do. Like, he's been in it long. He hasn't been in it as long as us, like you said, and I think he can hear kind of differences and maybe doesn't have feelings on certain songs that we've played maybe 1,000 more times than he has. Where we're like,
this song rocks. Yeah, we've played it 150 times.
And Taylor's honestly probably the most knowledgeable about jam bands and the jam scene. A lot of us are kind of like jam adjacent musicians, where a lot of us have really loved Fish and still do love Fish and are huge Fish heads and Deadheads, but that's kind of not as far as it goes. But we're always like kind of, I think, more interested in listening to other stuff. But Taylor like loves String Cheese and Humphreys and knows all the stuff and has probably been to more jam shows than any of us. So him writing Stylus is sweet because he has more of an understanding of like what a jam fan or somebody in the scene at a certain point in time is going to want.
That's part of the art of it.
You know, if we're listening to like hip hop or jazz or like Kurt Weill or whatever, or 70s music, we might have a little bit different opinion on what we want to hear at a set.
Right. Now, did we freeze up?
Oh,
I froze up.
I think you're back.
I live in the country.
Nice.
Yeah. So, do you guys do covers? You guys do covers?
We do some. We'll do like maybe one a show, but sometimes not at all. But we've done plenty of covers. We'll do some tribute nights, like we've done a full night of Radiohead. We've done Grateful Dead stuff. We'll play Fish tunes, but we always we like to pick some kind of more obscure covers that maybe aren't as well known. But yeah, it's definitely more of like a novelty thing for us than it is like trying to really nail, like, we're going to make sure we play a bunch of covers and do this. It's more of like a for fun, like, oh, I heard this song on the radio yesterday. That'd be kind of fun if we tried this out type vibe.
All right. Let's get into the mechanics of it. Who, you said everybody brings songs to the table. When you guys are going to, when somebody has a new thing, do they come with a full song? Is it a demo? I fleshed it all out, or is it more an idea? I got this great chorus. What can we build off this?
It really depends. A lot of the times it's full songs, but even when it's full songs, it's everyone is so trusting of everybody else in this band that it's like, you know, I can come with a full song, but that's my parts. But I also am knowing that Chris is going to add his flavor to it, and he's going to tweak some stuff and play things differently and make it Chris's part. And it's going to sound better than me being like, this is what you have to play type thing. So people will come with full songs, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be exactly like that. We don't write as like super collaboratively. We'll have there have been definitely songs where we've all worked on together, but a lot of the times it's mostly completed songs, maybe missing like a jam or a chorus if we're all working on it together. But it's usually completed songs or like small group, like duo writing pairs that will bounce around and trade off.
We've written a couple songs on tour all collaboratively.
Yeah.
But that has been more of like this is fun because we have a night off and we're all hanging out and let's just mess around. But yeah, it's funny that because I think a lot of bands do that where they'll go down and have writing sessions and come up with stuff. But I think all of us just work really well with fleshing out that kind of stuff alone, and then as a group being like, here's a skeleton or here's like the bones of it, and then let's decorate the house, you know, and everyone put their.
I like that. Carini is the best hanging out drunk on a Tuesday night song ever written.
Yeah, I think it really comes with that ability, just comes with how much respect and trust we have on everybody else as songwriters and musicians, where it's like, you know, I can present this in the hopes that you're going to make this part your own, you know, and kind of make it even better by bringing this. So we kind of collaborate in that way more so than actually sitting down and being like, what should we do for the verse?
How do you guys walk the line between the Chris sound or the Isaac sound or the John sound and the Desmond Jones sound?
We mash it all. It's all happening at once.
We never discuss it. We have never really discussed that. I think that's what the Desmond Jones sound is just
At once, when it was like years ago, I remember we had on some recording, like overheard crowd chatter, and somebody was like, Desmond Jones sounds like two bands at once. And this was like 2 years into it. So we were like still a party band, just like messing around as friends. But it was weird. Like, I think after a few years and a handful of years, all those sounds just began to mesh organically, and none of us really like lost ourselves. So all of us are blatantly ourselves on stage. And I think that the whole point of what we do is to like, kind of like how, I mean, it's not as like dictatorship as Zappa, but when Zappa always talks about where he wrote for his musicians because he wanted to bring their selves out of the music, because that's what you do best is what you do. I don't think anyone really was like, you have to do this and this is how we're going to do it. It's just all kind of like because we started as kind of really a party band and just friends that wanted to jam as much as possible in their basement. We never have had to really discuss a lot of that stuff. It all just has kind of happened organically from being around each other so much, which was awesome, because we've seen bands that start with a bunch of professionals or older when they're older and they've maybe played in a bunch of bands before and have like done the tours, but coming in basically as a bunch of teenagers and then growing together, there's like a brothership and a kinship where we don't have to really, there's not a lot of huge disagreements because we all are so understanding and respect each other, like Isaac said. So if we ever get a vibe from somebody that we're affecting someone negatively, I think all of us are so good at turning that off or like correcting it because we all respect each other and our family. So yeah, the sounds together is like everyone lets everybody. Our catchphrase is I'm doing my own thing. We say that all the time.
I think it helps too that if somebody has written a new song, you may be able to hear their voice a little stronger in the structure of the song with its verses and choruses, and obviously who's singing lead. But then the nature of the improvisation, we could have this verse, chorus, and then the person who wrote the song always says, and then this is the jam. And so we have this bit that is like maybe a little more uniquely one person, but then 2.5 minutes into it, all of a sudden we're jamming or improvising, and that's where everybody's instrumental voice can blend and mesh together really well. So I haven't written that many songs for the band, but it's nice for me to know that because I don't write as much of the composed and technical stuff like Isaac and Chris, I can write a good verse and a chorus and then know that we can open the song right up, and I can sort of take a step back and just be the drummer in my own song versus having to, be the lead voice in my own song, which is really fun.
You're working that Ringo angle, man. I love it.
Exactly.
1 or 2 songs every couple years, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I got my Ringo, my inspiration right here.
There you go. Ringo gets crap from some people, but the man showed up and did his job every day, and I would not argue with anything that man put on wax.
Yeah, no, I will come to his defense every day. Anybody who has an issue with Ringo is dealing with some self
Well, Pete Best doesn't like him, but that's another story.
Yeah, he got the best of him there, that's for sure.
So let me ask you, John, I'll start with you. What are you listening to when you're up there improvising or you hit a jam? What do you focus on?
Recently, in the recent years, I have been more locked into the bass, Taylor. I loved playing with our original bassist, Johnny, and felt like we had a really good connection. And so I was really worried when we had to find a new bass player because I knew how important that was. But Taylor has stepped up in every single way, and he has opened it up to me, and he has allowed me to deviate more because he's so steady and so locked in. I'm not as worried about the jams sort of falling out, or if I just stop playing altogether, I know that he's going to keep it going. So during the jams, I'm definitely listening to him and trying to make sure that we're as synced up as possible. Um, I really love listening to Isaac and Chris, especially their solos. Chris, in particular, I feel like we have a kindred jam spirit when it comes to his solos, and especially energy wise. I feel like I know exactly when he needs like an extra 8 measures to keep building and building and building, because I can just see him like throwing himself into his guitar, and then instead of building and building and then bringing it back down for Chris, it's like build and build and build and then like go one step further. And just I like to push Chris and see how much distortion he can put into one single note before passing it off.
I'd say it's like edging, but I probably shouldn't say that live.
Trey said
You
that
already
too.
did.
That's okay. That just comes from too much jazz, where they never release anything, and you just keep building, and then the song's over. But we're jam band, so we released it.
It's so fantastic with the sax, because I get things from Coltrane, Miles kind of jazz things, to the straight rock and roll, to what Zappa was doing with some of the dissonant honking kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, George is definitely our most unique wild card member of the band. He's kind of like a auxiliary. I think he plays sax, but we've also added a new feature we call the Synth Boys, which is Chris and George both got some synths, and so we've been adding in some fun new like keyboard stuff. So George will do that. He'll add in some little extra percussion, cowbell, tambourine stuff. He's also very into improvising lyrics and like monologues. So
which is a Zappa thing. I love that. It reminds me like the 88 band or something like that.
Exactly. I love it. And it's fun because that's like definitely a unique thing that I've tried it, and it's like
I couldn't do that.
I can't do it. And it's fun because that kind of elevates and pushes the songs in new directions that none of us can really do that well. You know what I mean? Like it really pushes us to be like, all right, this is a new section. We're here, and it turns into, maybe a verse, chorus, A-B section or something with what he's saying. And so it's really fun because that adds a whole lot of character and new movement to the songs. But yeah, he's definitely a wild card. You never know when that's going to bust out and where he's going to take us. In that
I love the instrumentation. And, I saw that you were adding the keyboards. I watched a show from last year somewhere. You were talking about an 8-ounce baby or something like that.
That happens a lot. I don't know what show that was.
That's one of our. We have a couple character. We have like our canon of characters that we talk about on stage, and the big baby is definitely one of them.
And then you're like 8 pounds. You were like 8 pound. It wasn't a 20-pound baby. It was 8 pounds.
John plays the big baby when we have shows.
Yeah, he can give you a good big baby impression later if you want.
I'm honored to play the role of the big baby sometimes. It's fun.
So I was going to say, how important is stuff like that for an audience to have something like a big baby?
I think it's really important for us because, especially, my favorite time to do it is when we're opening for a bigger jam band and the crowd hasn't seen us before. Because I think we're memorable in a lot of ways, but at the end of the night or a week later or a month later, what's somebody gonna remember about the opening band? And I love
big baby
the audience and just intentionally trying to shock them as much as possible. And very few times are people put off by it, and if they are, I think it's sort of a good thing. But usually we go back to the merch table, and if somebody comes, even if we make one new fan who comes out and says, I laughed my ass off during that jam, I'm like,
I've always said that something like Zappa or Hustler was a better form of social protest than going and protesting down at the Capitol, because it offended people. So many people that you never would have been in their living room before. How could this person do that? And what does that do in the age of content? Get you retweets.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
Well, humor is so important to us, and I think that's something that's unique to us a little bit in like a modern jam band, but something that I've always loved in music, and I wish there was more of. Like, we're not out there trying to be clowns
we
and make
need
it
humor. We
so
do.
funny,
That
but
was
like,
Fish's.
it's
That was kind of Fish's, turn on, was some of it was just so goofy.
Mhm.
David Bowie, UB40, and even the songs like Cavern that had lyrics, and you're like, what the hell's going on? There's a witch in a ditch, and
It's funny because I got into Fish listening to a lot of early 90s stuff. And then that's kind of, I think, like, I was listening to Fish before I got into the scene when I was like a teenager. So I had all these pre-notions of what it would be like. And then we start playing shows, especially the local jam shows. And it's not a lot, like, you don't get the goofiness, you don't get a lot of composed parts, you don't get strange lore or stories. You get like cow funk or type 1 major rock shred jam. And I've always liked the really artistic, creative, strange part of the jam scene. I think that's really, it's funny because that's kind of what we've done. It's like, sure, yeah, we can shred and we can type 2 and do all that stuff. But I think people are, like John said, they're going to remember the weird stuff that other people don't do, because there are so many jam bands nowadays and there's so many players that can shred just like Trey. But not a lot of people are going to scream like a big baby or do sax harmonics and do a delay for like 2 minutes straight.
Yeah, you want to make it, we want to make it an experience. It's a show. It's, we're playing music, but we like to add, like I said, we like to add humor. We like to add story and characters and make it immersive. We want you to be like a part of it and be, thinking about these characters. What's going to happen next? Who's Terry Puffer? Why is he taking over this guy's body? What's going on here?
There's a fine line to walk with that, though, between an entry for someone who doesn't know you and someone who is a fan. That's so hard to walk. Like the Disco Biscuits, I used to see them back in the 90s when they played the clubs around Baltimore. I didn't see them till they toured with you, Humphreys, at some point after COVID. That was and I'm completely lost with a lot of the mythology that is developed around them since then.
Yeah, it can be tough. It's like the classic Fish joke where you're trying to show your friend Fish and you go, oh, not this part, after this part.
This next part's the best.
Yeah. But that's just something that we love, and it's just been so part of that Zappa influence and everything, like we were talking about. It's just was so natural to us. Again, that was never a discussion or anything.
Right.
Where we were like, let's do this. Let's try to do this. It just kind of happened, and everyone was like, "Yeah."
So what are you guys' thoughts on the Fish run coming up?
We're excited. We're going to the Van Andel shows in Grand Rapids, and we're playing after parties both night at the Pyramid Scheme in Grand Rapids. So that'll be fun. Both of those nights we'll be out there. So if anyone's in Grand Rapids for those, come on by and see us after and get some extra jams in.
Right. And, no, but I was saying the Sphere. Do you have any thoughts on what's going to happen this weekend coming up?
Ooh, I don't know. I saw there was a theme.
I feel like that. I'm nervous for people that are gonna be having too much fun and they're gonna fall.
Somebody's gonna fall. Someone will fall over the 4 nights.
I think for sure. There's no way that all those people,
I'm gonna dance in the last row, all the way up at the top.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited for it though. I think I'm gonna get one of the live streams.
I'm fascinated. They said that there's 80 songs that they have graphics for, which is 20 tunes a night, which I guess isn't that much, but it tends to me to say that there isn't going to be the improv you normally have. Things are going to be tighter because they're trying to sync up these graphics and lights with it.
Yeah, I think it'll be more like their kind of New Year's show where they have the gags planned out. So they're probably pretty timed out on the jams there. Prepare for
there
some
will be a clock. There'll be a clock on stage. So you mentioned Grand Rapids. What else where else are we catching Desmond Jones on the road over the next few months?
Where are we? We are.
We'll be in
None of you are prepared. I love it. You're my
we'll be
guys.
in Kokomo, Indiana, on May 4th. Back in Ann Arbor at the end of May. We're going down to Axton, Virginia. We're headlining Sunbind Music Festival at the end of June.
Okay.
And then
And I'll throw links up. We will have links in the show notes down there. But
yeah, and then we'll be back in Michigan for a couple exciting festivals. We're playing Bliss Fest Music Festival in July, which is a big one in Michigan. The Wood Brothers are headlining that one.
Nice.
And so a lot of regional stuff, but we'll have all the recorded shows. So if
there you go,
see us from Maryland or wherever, then they can listen to it online.
Right. And what about, are you guys working in the studio now? You have new songs coming up. Are we going to be hearing new music?
Yeah, we have a new album coming out. It's actually some older material. It's some of our oldest material, but it's always been kind of our favorite. We were talking about the more theatric, weirder stuff. This is our, it's a 3-song, it's about an hour long of 3 songs called Squids. So it'll be pretty weird and composed, and we've got a lot of, like strings and big percussion and stuff. So it should be pretty epic and fun. And we're just finishing up the recording on that, and we start mixing, I think, right at the first week of May, and so that should be done relatively soon, and that'll be out in the next few months, I think. So that is on the horizon.
Strings, like you brought in strings, or is it?
We got
computer strings, or
no? We have we've been working with these 2 women in Grand Rapids, but Ashley Koistra plays violin and viola, so we have her doing both of those parts. And then Maddie on the cello, which will be super fun. So we've got a nice string trio throughout the whole album. And then we have maintained a pretty good relationship, John and I, with our old band director from high school. And so he let us come in and record like big, xylophone, timpani, bell chimes, all that stuff. So we've got a lot of fun, kind of big extra literal bells and whistles on the album.
Right. Do you find what you're doing now is a reaction to the last album? Because it seems like it's a 180-degree turn from the country.
I wouldn't say so, because I don't know. We kind of, like what we were saying, we have so much different material, and we have so much that it's never really been like we should try to make it this different. The country one was funny because that was definitely the most unique, I think, album for if you're going to see
if you listen to that, if somebody throws that on and then throw on one of your other albums, they're going to be like, is this the same band?
Exactly. But if you go to a show, you'll get both of those. You know what I mean? We like to we'll jam into country songs in the middle of like a big jam and do that. And we like to make the show a spread of our catalog. So a lot of the times it's, we try to make sure that there's at least 1 or 2 songs off that album or an older album or something like that. And we call them songs, mostly just songs that don't have 45-minute jams on the end of them. Yeah. So we try to make sure that our show has a nice spread of everything we do. So if you are just familiar with that, you're not going to walk out being like, was this the right band? Or, you know what I mean?
Where am I buying? Can I buy an album, a CD, a shirt, something like that?
Yeah, we have all of our albums on vinyl record that you can buy on our website or at the merch table. We also have CDs of 2 of the albums that you can buy online or at the merch table. And we have plenty of shirts. And as John, do you want to give John's like our carnival barker.
He has a closet full, doesn't he? He has a closet full of boxes, don't you?
Exactly.
Oh yeah, we got stickers, we got koozies, we got lighters, we got ass packs, fanny packs. We got all the good stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. And you guys are also on Bandcamp, which I guess you get some of the money from if somebody is more a fan of Bandcamp.
Oh yeah, yep. We're on Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, all the streaming services.
Yeah, Nugs. You guys are on Nugs, which is a big step for a lot of bands. I mean, it gets you, it puts your like you said earlier, you before a lot of new eyes.
Yeah,
That's
we get so
awesome.
many random people walking into shows now that are like, "Oh, I saw you on Nugs," and they'll post us like new releases this week. You know, they do that on Instagram, and they'll post us next to like Billy Strings and Dead and Co, and then we'll be there. So
thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. It's very nice.
That's beautiful.
But yeah, it's been
all right,
great.
cool. We're gonna have lots of links down there in the next day or two when I can get into YouTube and hang out for a minute for me, guys. And for all our viewers, make sure you like and subscribe. And remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. I'll see y'all soon.